Is it all right to hope for better days, or should you guard your heart when it comes to the White Sox? Let's discuss that with my guest next on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the set expert at SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Bez from OnTapSportsNet.com is someone I love talking baseball with and sports just in general. And I like talking with him on social media and obviously on the show. And one thing he has been hammering home: have guarded optimism. He's going to join me today on today's episode to discuss that, along with his takes on the recent prospects being infused into the system and why I might be over promoting Chase Meidroth as a modern day Greek god of walks. And Bez, thank you for joining me. I know you, and I've even seen former host of the show, Nick Murkowski, talk about it. You guys have been preaching it. Let's not get fooled again. So why should we guard ourselves during this rebuild?
Thanks for having me on again, Todd. I appreciate it. Always nice to chat with you. I mean, for me, it's just, for the obvious reason is, we went through this before. We put all of our hopes and dreams into prospects. And it's really funny when I go back and, you can search for tweets on Twitter. Pretty easy to go back and see like the enthusiasm and the optimism of 2017 and 2018 when we had, premium prospects knocking on the door, and not a whole lot happened as a result. It was a couple playoff wins, which isn't so bad. So I'm, that's a big reason of why I'm guarded. The White Sox as an organization don't really deserve the benefit of the doubt. It's something that they're going to have to earn. Again, they had the benefit of the doubt for a long time. So I think that's gone. They have to kind of rebuild their credibility before I really get into it. And, I'm not telling anybody how to fan. If you want to jump in head first with the prospect on the prospect train, go right ahead. Don't let me stop you. But for me, I'm going to take a little step back and just analyze things and be objective about it and try to take my fan hat off when I look at these prospects and look at it from different angles.
Yeah, I like how you have that preface with, we're not here to tell you how to fan. And that's one of the reasons why I want to get your your perspective here, is because you sometimes get the, the hard right and the hard left, where there's the ultimate optimists who are like, how dare you question being optimists? And then there's the hardcore negative that it's just like, well, who's the owner again? Who's this guy? It's Jerry Reinsdorf, and really what you got to do is you got to take that, 10,000 foot view and be like, okay, let's be objective here. Not saying that you can't be optimistic, but you should have some sort of guarded optimism. One litmus test that I'm going to use is to see if Chris Getz's version of this rebuild is working outside of, obviously, eventually once they get to the point where maybe there's a chance of winning, is not spending on the bullpen. What would be your litmus test?
I don't want to see them. The thing that I keep my eye on a lot is if they're making the same mistakes as they did in the first rebuild. They did a lot of trading of international money for prospects that didn't turn into anything. They had a Rule 5 pick that they just kind of gave away in 2018, and it turned out to be Jordan Romano, a 2-time All-Star closer that they just traded again for cash. And then there were, things that led to roster construction issues, like drafting first baseman and third baseman and DH types, continually in the first and second rounds. I don't see any of that yet. So that's been positive. So long term, that's the thing I'm looking at. And even with the prospects, there could be some things that look harmless, initially, but could lead to problems. Like when you've got 2 catchers that are some of your best prospects, and that's not a bad thing to have by any means. let them battle it out, and may the best man win and be the primary catcher. But then what do you do with the other guy? And it's like, okay, you move him to first base, DH, no problem. Okay, well, that's a position where you have to hit for power, and that puts more pressure on that particular person's bat to do that. And if they don't, and if they can't field the position, like, there's no guarantee you can just play catcher and play first base. Then what? Then what do you do? Where do you put them? Then that leads to roster issues.
Yeah, although I'd rather be roster redundant, like you said, in catcher than say roster redundant at first base. I think that was a big thing, and I like that you brought that up because, again, think about it. They draft Gavin Sheets, in 2018 in the second round. That's the other thing that people don't remember is that's still a premium asset being invested. And then you go back and draft the top 5 in Andrew Vaughn, who, don't get me wrong, he raked in college, but you really need to have this standard of, and I believe this is, you should only be drafting first basemen if they're like physical freaks of nature, like Frank Thomas. They have just tremendous genes like Prince Fielder, or there's that little tiny possibility of being a two-way player like Jack Caglione. And the only reason why you don't want to take Jack Caglione was he's the type of guy that like maybe finishes off rebuild, whereas Andrew Vaughn was not going to finish the rebuild. He should have been a foundational player and that type of stuff. The other thing is, like I said, with the bullpen is the misallocation of resources. Think about that. They spent so much money on that bullpen when there was just so much limited financial resources that they never addressed second base and right field, properly.
Yeah. And they had a second baseman who, was playing all right at the time, but didn't turn into anything, who they traded. And that's the other thing is, like, when you don't have this like steady pipeline of players that are ready and knocking on the door, they didn't have anybody to replace Nick Madrigal. And that trade, not that Nick Madrigal turned out to be anything special, but that trade blew up in their face because Craig Kimbrell was an absolute bust. So you had a hole at second base all over again with no one to replace him. So there was never that like second wave of prospects. So if the White Sox are going to go this route, if they want to be the Tampa Bay Rays, hopefully the player development improves and they don't have that problem again. And then, another guy was Jake Berger in the first round. And, he finally came around, another third base, first base DH type, who actually eventually turned into a pretty good power hitter who they traded. So, there's so many things that can go wrong. It's really a lot more fragile than people give it credit for. And we saw it last time, and I'm seeing it, and I love talking about this on Twitter. I'm seeing it with the Baltimore Orioles. I'm seeing some parallels there with what happened with us. Maybe they're in better shape than we were, but and it's not a perfect analogy, but there's some similarities there that I'm keeping my eye on.
Although, could I offer one critique? They actually remind me more of the Cubs without the World Series. How they held on to they're holding on to this core. They keep on thinking that another wave, that's all they need, and they really haven't. It's kind of like now that I think about it, it's kind of a both. They still haven't completed the rebuild in terms of getting like that long-term piece like a John Lester and a Jason Hayward. But on the flip side, they're like the Cubs in that, these core group of guys, this is our core group of guys, and we're going to stick to these guys, and we're just going to keep bringing them up. I don't know. I mean, that's just one critique. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, that makes sense. And the Cubs hung on to those guys hoping for, that second surge, and they emptied their farm system somewhat to acquire like Jose Quintana. They gave up two of their premium prospects to do that. So that's another thing to the fragility of the whole thing is if you hug the wrong prospects, that can really turn things for the worse when you do that. And, you saw the Orioles trade Connor Norby, and he goes to the Marlins and just starts mashing the ball immediately. While the guys they held on to, some of them kind of struggled, even though they're young. That's an apt comparison. The Cubs had a World Series to show for it, though, and the Orioles still don't even have a playoff win.
Yeah, at least the White Sox had 2 playoff wins out of their rebuild, and you're right. The Orioles, it's like, are you going to even do something to get a playoff win? The final thing that I wanted to bring you out to is because I keep seeing, I even did the show 2 days ago because I was under the weather yesterday. Those people though that think it's just 1 or 2 things that it's going to take and boom, things are going to turn around. This is going to be a long, painful process, correct?
I believe so. These are some good organizational changes that they've made at the international level and building a new facility in the Dominican Republic, bringing in Bannister, bringing in Fuller. Those are important. However, they're 10 years behind. There's, teams that are at the top of the league who are more so on the cutting edge of player development have had people in those positions for a long time. So the White Sox have a lot of ground to make up in that respect. So that's why I think it's going to be a while. You also, during the last rebuild, we still had Tim Anderson and we had Jose Abreu already on the roster. And then we had premium prospects. It worked out differently for some, but you had Luis Robert, a top 10 prospect, and Eloy was a top 10, and Moncada was a top 10. So we don't have any of those top 10 guys. And that's, that makes it take a little bit longer, possibly. It just depends on how those things work out with the player development stuff. But if the goal is to build a steady stream of solid prospects, like your minor league system is consistently producing, that's going to take a while. We're not going to see the effects of Bannister and Fuller truly take shape for 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah. Let's get into more detail about what Bez thinks about the recent prospect additions after the break on Locked On White Sox. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same thing goes for life insurance. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million, no medical exam required, and it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you're not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball, venting with me and here with OnTapSportsNet.com's White Sox contributor is Bez, because I always butcher his name. I think a lot of people butcher your name there.
They do.
And where can we always find your great content?
You can always find it on Sox on Tap, OnTapSportsNet.com, in our Sox section. Game recaps, news-related items, opinion, speculation, kind of cover the whole thing. And, we have our podcast as well when we have time to do so, because we all have lives outside of this.
Yeah, and you were on the Au Jus talking about, too, what's better, blogging or podcasting? See me? I double dip. There you go. I get the best of both worlds.
I like that.
So we'll talk about Chase Meidroth in the next segment, and I know how much you love to talk prospects, but do you think Kyle Teel and Braden Montgomery will avoid the same fates of Michael Kopech and Yoan Moncada in terms of constantly being injured, underperforming, just the most frustrating players to ever wear White Sox uniforms?
I certainly hope not, but I don't. It's tough. It's a tough thing to project, and I'm not a professional talent evaluator. I have no background. I have no credentials. When I see people at the major league level come and they, finally crack in, and I see what they've got and, how hitters are reacting, how they're reacting to things, just because I feel like just because I've been watching baseball for 40 years, I kind of have a good feel for, who can do what. But, right now, I don't know. This is, Braden Montgomery has never played a minor league game. He's a star in college, but, the competition just is going to be even tougher. Kyle Teel looks like he's about major league ready. The prospect rankings like him, Baseball Prospectus and Baseball America have him about the same. So that's a good thing to have. And it sounds like he's a guy who's going to stick at catcher. So I'm happy about that, because if you remember to the last rebuild, we had a guy named Zach Collins, who the whole industry, who was a top 100 prospect, and the entire industry said he could not stick at catcher. He probably won't stick at catcher, but the White Sox insisted, and he did not stick at catcher or even in the big leagues. So, I can't get emotionally attached to these guys. Some of them, you like better than others or I might like better than others for, reasons that don't necessarily equate to what their success is going to be in the major leagues. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I really hope so. I really hope that they can figure out how to make sure these guys don't hit and stop hitting a million ground balls and not hitting the ball in the air and chasing pitches 5 feet out of the strike zone, because I've had enough of watching that.
Yeah, I think though, when you bring in Ryan Fuller, I think hopefully he's going to implement kind of what the Baltimore Orioles do, and that is don't chase after bad pitches. Look for your pitch. Hopefully he just teaches them how to watch film. Because I know the director of film, if it's still Brian Johnson, great guy. Worked with him actually at Miller Park back in the day. He knows his stuff. I just don't think anybody knows how to watch film on there. So I think they actually literally have to bring in somebody to be like, here's how you watch your tape. Here's what you do. Here's the report. Read your report. Like Fuller implemented in Baltimore. Man, these guys aren't reading their reports. And they're like, well, because we're always on our phones. Okay, I'll text you, your hitting report on your phone. I think that could go a long way. And just, will they have work ethic? If they have work ethic, they're going to go a way longer way than Yohan Moncada, because everybody knows his work ethic was inconsistent at best. Do you believe, though, that, again, I'm not asking you to have your, talent evaluator. I'm just heart of hearts, objective, whatever you're thinking. Do you believe there is any chance the White Sox can actually get all 4 prospects that they got in the Garrett Crochet to be at least productive big league players? Because remember, that didn't happen in the Chris Sale trade. It was only Kopech and Moncada that got there.
Mm-hmm. If all 4, that would be a huge win. The pitching prospect they got is like a mediocre pitching prospect, but you can feel good about the fact that the White Sox already had a pretty good feel for pitching, because you look at the track record of, Lucas Giolito and Dylan Cease. Like, Giolito famously was the worst pitcher in baseball in 2018 and turned his career around thanks to Ethan Katz. And it took Dylan Cease a few years to figure it out, but he got there. They made Ronaldo Lopez into a good reliever for a little while, and now he's a pretty good starter with Atlanta. They had wins there on the pitching side. And now they've doubled down in that area with Bannister. So the pitching prospects, I definitely feel a little bit better about than the position players. Like, that's where they have a lot to prove to me. I think Meidroth is going to be in the big leagues this year. Kyle Teel will be in the big leagues this year. It's so hard to say. I think, Teel is the guy that's the most highly rated, and the prospect analysts whose opinions I trust, like him. So that's kind of the guy that I'm gonna lean towards as far as being, the best out of that deal. It looks like, from what I've read about Braden Montgomery, he's kind of like a boom or bust guy. Like, he might be this like really good defensive outfielder who can mash, or, maybe he's just a good defensive outfielder who is a platoon bat. So, it's tough to project guys like that. So I guess Teel is, I feel like Teel is kind of a cop-out because he was the headliner of that deal. But, I think that's kind of the direction that I'm leaning.
I don't think that's too much of a cop-out, because even the projection is he should be a top 10 catcher. Although the asterisk, and I think it was Kylie McDaniel, who was on the White Sox Talk podcast with Chuck Garfien, was saying a top 10 catcher might not be the greatest numbers, though. You're talking about maybe a 250 hitter, 10 to 15 home runs, but you're looking more, again, what can you do behind the plate? So I don't think that's totally terrible. Now, the international signings, what were your impressions?
Again, it's so hard to get excited about 16-year-old and 17-year-old and 18-year-old Venezuelans and Dominicans and Cubans. Some of these kids that are signing, I'm like, they look like babies. These guys, some of these kids, some of them have braces. I'm like, it's just wild to me as a 40-year-old, how much younger the players are than I am, and how much younger they look. So it's so hard to say, with stuff like that. I do appreciate that they're not really trading international money as much. They did at the end of 2013, is the last time I can think of them doing that. So that's a good thing, and just keep stockpiling these prospects and get them into the new program and the facility they have down there. Keep modernizing the organization because they've got a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah, the thing though that I never understood is why they have so much to make up is that's still old school scouting in a lot of way. And you think the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, would be like, I'm all about this. Let's get so many. I mean, maybe now the scouts don't want to go there. And I know there was the scandal last decade with, the director or, skimming off the top, but still you think he'd be all over like, hey, we're still doing old school looking at this guy, this kid who's 14, 15 and thinking, will he be something? The thing that I like though is at least they went into countries where they still have a good brand in Cuba and Venezuela, and I'd still be pounding that. And then keep hitting the Dominican Republic. That was just more my impressions. Where are you going and where are you grabbing your talent? And could you somehow, some way, pry open Japan at some point? That I don't know if they'll ever get that back open again. But it did yield you Tadahito Iguchi and Shitingo Katsu. Mr. Zero, I forgot, but you had some success at the beginning of the century, and all of a sudden you just close that pipeline off.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there with the NPB. I mean, that was that looked like that was something that they had going. I know that we've heard the seat at the table joke a billion times, but when Masahiro Tanaka came over and eventually signed with the Yankees, apparently, though everyone said the White Sox made a very competitive north of $100 million offer on him. So it was like, they seem to have some momentum there, and you're right, it just shut off, and it's just like, well, what happened, why? And like, when Ohtani came over, he was a pretty low cost signing, and when given the state of the franchise right now, they had no chance at Roki Sasaki, but I do appreciate them at least trying. Every major league team should have been trying. I would love them to delve into that market more. And they did go and get Eric Fetty from the KBO, so that was something interesting that they did last year that seemed different.
Yeah, I mean, and those two. I mean, at least, the bar has been set so low because we've been used to them, doing organizational malpractice, that at least they didn't commit organizational malpractice on Roki Sasaki. At least they did check in, and they tried to leverage whatever long shot they had to get him, which was Tadahito Iguchi. And that's the other thing. Why not have him help in some way, shape, or form? I don't know how well respected he is in Japan. I just know that he still likes the White Sox, still wants to have a relationship with the franchise. Why not leverage that and see if you can get, because why does Japan matter? Usually you're going to get a player that can at least help you right away. You don't have to send them to AAA. You don't have to send them to AA. They're going to come in, they're going to play right away, and they're mostly going to be productive.
Yeah. For the most part, they have been. And then, we've also had like the superstars and all-stars as well. But yeah, those are guys you can plug in right away. They're major league ready. So I don't know, get out there and get those guys.
Yeah, that would be my thing. All right, so I'm going to sort of put my money where my mouth is. And then when it comes to Chase Meidroth being the modern day Greek god of walks, Bez and I will discuss the terms of a friendly little wager after the break on Locked On White Sox. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. It was so much fun last summer taking my daughter to a ball game. She loved getting ice cream, going to the kids area, sort of like the baseball, but I loved having a great day with my wife and daughter at the ballpark. And if you love going to live events, I suggest using the Game Time app. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with our new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. My brother-in-law, he's looking for tickets to when Marquette plays UConn. You're talking about two ranked Big East teams. Game is sold out. Told him, get on the Game Time app because they still have great deals, and you even get a panoramic view of the seat before you buy. Plus, told him all about the app's all-in pricing, showing the total cost upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? Game time who? Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Sorry about not having an episode yesterday. as you can tell, I think I'm coming down with a cold, some sort of nasal thing. Woke up, my throat was just really, sore and that type of stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep a little bit longer. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Here with my guest, Bez of OnTapSportsNet.com. I still don't get why you guys have the OnTapSportsNet.com.
Because OnTap Sports is taken.
Okay, there. Sorry. I had to. I'm like, so there we go.
There's actually a very interesting story behind that we don't have time for right now, but I'll tell you at some point.
All right, there we go. And so first, I'll admit I might be getting over my skis. So, Bez, why should I tamper down my excitement for Chase Meidroth not getting on base as much as I think he will?
Well, I think the little bet we have is that he's got to go north of 70 walks, or he's got to get 70 walks for you to win, which would put him, last I checked, I think in like 70. What did I say?
I think it was 70, yeah.
So I think last time I checked it, that would put him in like the top 20 or 25 in all of baseball. So I would be impressed. I will happily lose this bet if Chase Meidroth, if the White Sox have any player in the top 25 in baseball in walks, I would be ecstatic, especially for the guy who was the third best player in the Crochet trade. So it's not. I don't think it's looking good for you, sir. I don't think it's looking good.
I looked at the Zips projections, and I think they had him at 72. So
what?
I think that's what it was. If you might want to double check it, I swear it was at 72. I may have missed it. But now the other reason why I might be getting a little bit over my skis, though, is I had Beefloaf on last week from the 108, and he was saying, though, major league pitchers will find a way to maybe get that, to get your bat lifted off your shoulder. And he is one of those guys. The scouting report, I had Chris Clegg on couple months back, he does a lot of prospect write-ups, watches a lot of prospects down there. He was saying that he is very, very stingy when it comes to even just lifting the bat off his shoulder. He will only swing at his pitch. So I'm interested to see, can pitchers actually induce him to swing the bat and get swing the bat and then get the ball on the ground. That's where I'm kind of interested. So that's where I'm making my logical guess. I looked at his on base percentage. I looked at what I'm hearing. So again, what are the terms?
I think we're betting lunch. I think it's just like, nothing crazy, like up to $30. That should be plenty for lunch. I can send you a gift card if that works, or we can meet equidistance and go grab a bite at some brew pub or whatever.
Or DoorDash. Or
DoorDash.
Now, how many games are we going to set this on? Because I don't want to. I want to buy some insurance here if I can, because obviously if he has a Braden Shoemake 1 month and then he's never heard from him again.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's got to. 100. Yeah, I mean, he's got to be in the major leagues for well over 100 games.
Okay, well, why don't we set it at 115? It's bust if he goes on IL. If he's hurt, hopefully not. Or yes, if he's never heard from him again, then we wipe it out. But if it's at 115 games or more,
I'll even bump it up to 125. 170 walks in 115 games. That's a lot. So let's bump it up to like 125. I just hope that, I don't know what they're going to do with these guys. I don't know who's going to break camp with the team, or, if they're going to do any service time manipulation type stuff, or if they want to give, Lenyn Sosa one last chance to prove himself as a major league player. Let's go
125. All right. So we got that. We got it on record. And I honestly think, though, and I like that you brought that up really quick before we go, I honestly think Lenyn Sosa, they're just going to rotate around kind of like what they did with Nicky Lopez. I think he's going to be in the lineup as much as they can, but there's going to be days he's going to be at third. There's going to be days he might be at short. There's going to be days at second. I think they're going to keep doing that just because look what they did with Nicky Lopez. They just had to get him out there every single day, and it was like, stop getting him out there. Because, great. He had a nice September, but he also got demoted 3 times. He was racking up freaking flyer miles between, that. He is the Godfather 3 line. He just keeps bringing you back in. You want to be out on him, and he keeps bringing you back in.
Yeah, he had a nice run in September, but, those September games is, you're playing teams that have nothing to play for, including the White Sox. They had nothing to play for. People are tired. They're running out of gas. September numbers can be inflated. His batting average of balls in play was like well over 400, which, indicates he's getting really freaking lucky. He can't really field a position well. I mean, I think second base is his best position. He's maybe average there. So I don't know. Hopefully he's just a placeholder, until Montgomery is ready. I don't see Montgomery breaking camp with the team unless he has just a crazy spring training. Hopefully Meidroth is up right away. And Sosa is just, maybe he's just a bench guy until some prospects are ready. That's my hope, at least. And he's out of options, so they can't send him down. He's got to just be DFA'd or traded.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sosa. I mean, I think he would be one of the starters, whether it's third, short, or second. And I mean, it sounds like even Getz, when I was it the recap podcast or was it after the trade, was saying like there's not much for Meidroth to do with the minors. So I think he breaks camp. Is he though the utility guy or is he the starter? Those are all excellent points. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I will be back tomorrow with what I wanted to discuss yesterday, but again, felt a little bit under the weather, and that is, would this team look a lot differently if the Sox did not take Andrew Vaughn in the 2019 draft? Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding having a full-fledged optimism or being guarded about the Sox future, the prospects recently infused into the system, and Chase Meidroth, modern-day Greek god of walks. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. And Bez, again, where can we find all your great content?
OnTapSportsNet.com, Sox on Tap. Majority of my content is White Sox focused. You can follow me at Bez Beyond the Pen on the X machine, and B-EZ at is it .social.bsky.social if you're on there.
Yeah, the handles are so long. I mean, I like Blue Sky, but sometimes the handles are so long. It's like, how do I really tell people this?
Yeah, it's kind of tough, but you got to diversify and get out there on different platforms. So you can find me there and on TapSportsNet exclusively.
All right. Well, Bez, thank you for joining me. Everybody have a great day. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Todd. Bye.